Once again, we meet to greet and not eat, but food for thought about our art form, how Kathak has gone from little village temple to court to cities to metro India and international, from where to where Kathak as a form has gone. So, we will take up today the subject of diaspora. Diaspora means celebration of an indigenous culture in an alien setting by those people who were settled there. Despite its antiquity, the first Indian dance performance in the West took place less than 200 years ago in 1838, when a group of Devdasis set foot in Europe. These temple dances were popular, known as bayadres in France, and elsewhere the word from Portuguese baladeira, names of ethnic or folk dancers. Western accounts of Indian dance in the 18th century veered from highly positive Jacob Hafner to extremely negative Abbe Jean-Antoine Dubois. The early 19th century Europeans tended to view India and other Oriental lands and people with wonderment and fascination, irrespective of whether we call this tendency Orientalism or Romanticism. A wave of curiosity about things Indian swept over Europe. It was on the crest of such a wave that the first troupe of Indian temple dancers was carried over the seas and cast upon European shores. The first European play ever written on Devdasis was Antonio Marie Lemaire's Le Vivre de Malabar. The first European play ever written on Devdasis was Antoine Marie Lemaire's Le Vue du Malabar in 1770. The first European opera on Devdasis was Charles-Simon Catel's Les Bayadres in 1810. And the first Western ballet centered around an Indian temple dancers was Les Deux de la Bayadre with music dance by Daniel Aubert in 1830. Each of these emerged from France, of all the places. While Kathak arose from ancient traditions and developed over centuries, it has very quickly spread internationally, wherever Indians are settled and continue with their cultural or artistic pursuits. Art forms give Indians abroad, away from parentship, their motherland, a cultural mooring and sense of belonging. Also, this is easy and best way tales and legends of kings and queens, mythology and traditions continue from generation to generation. Thus, unlike many other smaller countries and culture, Indian culture lasts eons. Where is Roman civilization today or Greek? Where are those huge empires of Mesopotamia or Babylon? It again proves the depth of Indian culture and its lasting value of a strong civilization based on dharma, not adharma. This reflects in a society that has had benefits of civilization and thus continues the task of passing on traditions, as reflected through art forms, shastras, to the next generations. This is how a great culture continues, else many have fallen by the wayside. It is the strength of our scriptures and shastras that have made it feasible and a continuum over many centuries. India is the only country that has had a continuous culture for 2000 years, still being practiced today. Japan too has to some extent. Even in our worst days of colonial domination and culture, many out of poverty had to move abroad in search of employment. Many Indians went as poor indentured labor to other colonies of same British or French masters, Trinidad or Mauritius. So when someone from India migrated as indentured sugarcane or plantation worker 200 years ago to Fiji or Mauritius, Trinidad or Africa, America or Australia, they took with them racial memories of song and dance, literature and traditions. Over centuries, this trait becomes diasporic. Diaspora means the dispersion or spread of any people from their original homeland. Kathak has had a long history of changes from temples to courts to proscenium stage to stadium and now films as mass medium, from art of classes to art of masses. The history and heritage of Kathak is amazing in that we see in many countries now that many Indians and foreigners who learned this form are busy teaching and spreading the art form. In the last century alone, many have contributed significantly in many countries. Credit actually first goes to pioneering Americans and assorted Europeans who came to India in the early 20th century and saw what was left of Kathak like Notch. They caught glimpses of an art in tradition and were instrumental in helping savor and save it. They made even Indians proud of these extant traditions, diminished by long alien rule. When they took up the task of recreating small items from our big repertoire, they helped open our eyes to this ancient form. These Western pioneers were catalysts, and thus they helped many educated Indians to take this art form further. So these pioneers we first salute. Ted Shawn and Ruth St. Denis came to India, saw Notch and other dances, and from this they created small items like Marwadi dance. These small items were performed by them in Europe and America, thus making them and the dance forms popular and known. Thus many started learning in India itself and then making troops and traveling abroad like Uday Shankar, Hindu Wedding, Krishna and Radha with Pavlova. Ted Shawn was just embarking on his life when in 1914 he saw Ruth St. Denis perform. Ruth was a revolutionary artist who felt the need to break from the limitations of ballet. She saw the salvation of the dance not so much in the rhythm of classical Greece as in those of the Orient, Japan and India. Knowing full well that the Western mind could not assimilate the content of these dances of the East with their gestures and movements that have come down through long generations of symbols of faith and legend, she made no attempt to reproduce them. Her aim was to give a fair and beautiful translation that would help American and European dance audiences come closer to Oriental cultures. In that, she provided to be a catalyst. Her many dances with Indian themes like Radha, incense, cobra, Notch dance made many come closer to things Indian. The two got married. Denis Shawn, the dance school and the dance company were born. Denis Shawn toured and traveled. Denis Shawn toured and continued until 1932, during which time they trained countless dancers. The most memorable tour from Indian dance history point of view was in 1925, as when the company landed in Calcutta, the only words they knew was Notch. They started making inquiries about where they could see it, and only at the end of their 18-day stay did they succeed, that too through the American consulate. The Shawns were fortunate to see two star performers of the day, Bachwa Jan and Mallika Jan, both professing Kathak. Watching Bachwa Jan, St. Denis could not contain herself and, as if in trance, got up and started improvising to the same music. This delighted Bachwa Jan so much that she unfastened the ankle belt she was wearing and proffered them to Ruth St. Denis. Two of her favorite items Ruth has included in her tour repertoire were the Notch dance and the dance of the black and gold sari that were a smash hit wherever it was performed. Madam Menka learned Kathak from Sitaram Mishra, Ramdat and Lachu Maharaj and created her own style of choreography, adapting its technique for dramatic purposes. Along with the knowledge of other dance forms in the West and around the world, she created solos as well as dance dramas based on traditional forms. She gathered a troupe of dancers and musicians and toured India and Europe for 2 years with them from 1936 January. At Berlin Olympics in July 1936, Menka and her group participated in the Dance Olympiad for 2 days, and for their Deva Vijay Nritya on the second day, the first 3 prizes were won by Menka, Ramnarayan and Gauri Shankar. This international recognition for Kathak helped boost the popularity of the dance form. Lammeri was an American dancer, teacher, writer and dance ethnologist. Described as the undisputed queen of ethnic dance by Walter Sorrell, the dance writer, La Mary was long considered the leading American authority on the subject, particularly the dance of India and Spain. She toured the world at the height of her career in the 1920s and 30s, studying the performing in South and Central America, Europe, Scandinavia, Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Tasmania, India, Burma, Malaya, Java and Philippines, China, Japan, Ceylon and Hawaii. She founded the School of Natya with Ruth St. Denis in 1940 in New York, where she taught and performed with her company, the Five Natyas. Her first major work was Krishna Gopala, presented in 1940 with St. Denis and Hadassah as the guest artists. She also created an interpretation of Swan Lake in the Bharatanatyam style and created many dances in the styles of other cultures. She taught and performed with her own company at New York School of Natya, which was absorbed into the Ethnologic Dance Center she founded in 1942. The school continued until 1956 and was an important source of training in ethnic dancing. La Mary came to India and managed to learn Bharatanatyam from Papanasam Vadivelu and Kathak from Ram Dutt Tiwari and held performances very credibly. She took from India trends that led South Indians like Ram Gopal to learn Kathak in Bangalore. La Mary discovered Ram Gopal's true potential and took him on in 1936 as a dancing partner on his first tour, and since then Ram travelled the world many times over. Ram Gopal performed in some of best known theatres of the world, including the Grand Theatre, Opera House in Poland, the Palais du Louvre and Musée Guimet in Paris, the Aldwych in London and the Town Hall at Stockholm, where the Nobel Prize ceremony is conducted. Ram Gopal, who came under tutelage of Sohan Lal, collaborated with Tara Chaudhary of Lahore and travelled to many countries. He also took Kumudini Lakhia, Shevanti and Puvaiya sisters, Sita, Chitra and Lata, who were trained by Sundar Prasadji, with him. He created travelling dance companies, the likes of which the world, especially Europe, had not seen, although he gave credit for his inspiration to the other light of his times, Uday Shankar, whose example had preceded Ram's by a decade. Then we saw the rise of big Indian groups that travelled for months, even years abroad. An important outpost for Kathak has been Germany. In 1933, Zora Segal travelled with her maternal uncle to Mary Wigman's school in Dresden, Germany, to train in ballet. Having been brought up in strict Parda, it was her first tryst with art form. It was during her stay in Europe that she watched the Vijay Shankar Uday group performing troupe Shiva Parvati. Mesmerized by their performances, Zora went backstage to ask Uday Shankar whether she could join his troupe. In 1935, she joined the group and danced across Japan, Egypt, Europe and the US as a leading lady along with French dancer Simki. Germany had some exponents like Fred Traguth in Bonn, who organized the biggest dance festival in the 60s and 80s. Today's universities like Berlin have many Indian dance, and Kathak is well known too. Italy. Kathak has had base in Rome and now Bergamo, thanks to Teatro Taschibele di Bergamo and their interest in things Indian, and also taking renowned dancers like Biju Maharaj, who conduct workshops and spread knowledge of Kathak there. Rosella Fenelli is an exponent of Lucknow Gharana and a disciple of Pandit Arjun Mishra for nearly 15 years. Described as an Indian soul in Italian body, she is the first Westerner to have received the academic title Praveen in Kathak dance at the Institute Sangeet Prayag Samiti of Allahabad. She was in the film Nirvana by Gabriel Salvatore and has collaborated on several occasions with the Embassy of India in Rome. She participated in the festival Star of East, Lazzaroni Villa Roma, as Kathak exponent in a comprehensive program which featured the most celebrated exponents of the various styles of classical dance from India. In 2008, Rosella successfully introduced a full-fledged degree course in Indian music and classical dance, Kathak, at Vicenza University, where she is full-time instructor professor at the university. A highly respected teacher, Rosella has given dance performances in cities like Milano, Roma, Lucca, Florence, Perugia, Assisi and Roverta, besides in India and the USA. Spain has had an easy assimilation due to flamenco and footwork. Thus, in ICCR-sponsored institutions like Casa Veluta, Kathak has reached there and some learn. ICCR's work in teaching Kathak and spreading knowledge cannot be underestimated. It set up Indian cultural centers first for diaspora population in island countries that had small but significant populations like Trinidad, Tobago, Guyana, Suriname, Fiji in the 1970s, and sent Kathak teachers from India. Thus, Pratap Pawar went to Trinidad, then Pradeep Sharma. Mauritius. In 1964, Indian classical music dance was introduced in Mauritius thanks to an agreement between governments of India and Mauritius. The first Mauritian who went to pursue studies in Indian classical music was Ishwar Dutt Nandalal. He was awarded the first scholarship offered by Government of India in the late 1950s. To him goes the credit of creating awareness in and arousing interest among the Mauritian population in Indian classical music. Soon after, Indian artists started visiting Mauritius for performance in classical, semi-classical, folk and light music and dance. Indian expatriates Nandakishore and his wife Kamal were called upon to help run the courses in Indian music and dance. They taught Hindustani vocal music, Kathak and Bharatanatyam. Bharati Ramayed, Ramesh Nandu, Inder Dutt Dearpal, Rajmohan Bhorat, Meera Ramayad, Damayanti Obilok, Gyan Sobhi are some of the names that emerged from the first batch of students. They also staged dance dramas like Ramayan, Bharatmila, Panchavati, Shakuntala, Meghaduta, Chitrangada, Chandalika, and Web of Existence. The ever-growing interest and demand for the performing arts led to the foundation of Mahatma Gandhi Institute. The institute was established by an Act of Parliament in 1970 as a joint initiative of the Government of India and Mauritius to serve as a center for the study of Indian culture and traditions and for the promotion of education and culture. Dr. Kisun Singh Hazari Singh was given the responsibility as Director of Planning. The first School of Indian Music and Dance was integrated with the Mahatma Gandhi Institute in 1975. Australia. Kathak went to Australia in late 80s and is now being taught by many. Temples of Fine Arts was founded in Perth in 1981. Artistic directors Sukhi Shetty Krishnan and Sarasa Krishnan trained in Bharatanatyam, Odissi and Kathak, as well as venturing into ballet and contemporary dance. The company has regular performances in Perth, but it is most well known for the huge productions with incredible sets and casts of 50 to 100 dancers. Bhagwan Das Verma was trained by Nandalal Bose and Uday Shankar in the 1930s. He worked with Uday Shankar troupe before branching out on his own and coming to Delhi, where in 1957 he enacted the role of Rama in Sri Ram Bharati Kala Kendra's first-year presentation. He then joined Kumum Lal's Natya Ballet Center and was the main choreographer of Surdas and Krishna Leela. His association with both institutions resulted in over 15 dance dramas. After 4 decades of work in Delhi, he settled in Australia. His daughter disciple Shakuntala Nair has advanced training under Pandit Sundar Prasad, Kundalal Gangani, Beju Maharaj and Devi Lal. She married Krishnan Nair, who was a senior staff artist of Sri Ram Bharati Kala Kendra. She did principal roles like Sita in Kendra's productions and served the Kendra till she was sent by ICCR to Fiji in 1972. She finally migrated to Australia. After independence, some Indians settled in UK, Mauritius, Africa, America, Europe, Australia. They were first generation of Indians who were properly trained in Kathak and laid foundation of this form. So we saw a phase where many experienced teachers, dancers helped others learn Kathak internationally. Zhang Zhongqing is a Kathak dancer from Beijing. After dabbling with various Chinese folk dances, Zhongqing decided to take her childhood fascination with Indian dance a step forward and enrolled in a Kathak class at the Indian Embassy in Beijing. Zhongqing is a disciple of Ashok Chakravarti, a disciple of Pandit Birju Maharaj. The toughest part, she admits, is remembering the different types of rhythm and understanding the music and background. In Chinese dances, especially folk forms, there is little variation in expressions. It's either happy or sad. In Kathak, we switch from devotion to fear, to hope, to love, expressing all these emotions very swiftly. That took a bit of learning. Bollywood borrows elements of Kathak and Bharatanatyam, but it is completely different. A lot of people in China, however, feel that Bollywood is all there is to Indian dance, she says. Important points for many. Learning Kathak is an easy step to learning Bollywood and vice versa. They feel the step and body movements are easy and so they can learn quickly, which is possible unlike in Bharatanatyam, Kuchipudi or Kathakali. Kathak has reached far and wide today and no function is complete without a representation, especially for non-South Indian diasporic populations settled abroad. This itself is its biggest achievement in less than 100 years, when just a century ago it had died a natural death and become naught. India's resilience and greatness shows in these instances, when such artistic expressions of a race take pride in itself and reaches out to pass the art to the next generation and to next.
Thank you.